In an exciting and insightful video, we will analyze the development process of Solana to see if they are developing what they promise and how good or bad they are doing that, especially when compared to other projects. Stay with me. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this channel, aside from everything that we will talk about and learn together, I'm going to emphasize more on an important but less analyzed aspect of cryptocurrencies and blockchains, so that may be a little unfamiliar for you. For that reason, I recommend that you watch my first video, the Bitcoin analysis, because in that video I talk a lot slower with more details and explanations. But if you have already seen that video, you will like and enjoy this one more, because of all the improvements in the insights and also more beautiful and comprehensible charts. In this video we are going to analyze Solana, a blockchain that aims to solve the scalability issue in the industry and introduces itself as a decentralized, unstoppable and censorship resistant, ultra-fast and at the same time secure blockchain with low-cost transactions. In fact, they claim to be the fastest blockchain in the world, the fastest growing ecosystem in crypto, the most performant blockchain, and the world's first web-scale decentralized network. And to create such a blockchain with these features, they develop 8 key technologies. But instead of talking about how these technologies work in detail, we're going to see how good they are developing what they promise, how much they pay attention to the community that wants to help them improve what they have built, and how well they are managing the risks. And we are going to do that by analyzing the development process. We may sometimes forget it as a result of the distraction of the hype for financial gains, but Solana is software. And we should analyze it both like an investment asset and software. Otherwise, we may lose some money or even worse than that, our trust in the future of blockchain just because of not paying attention to one critical area. So without wasting time, let us begin. This analysis consists of 4 sections: overview, community, programming, and security or risk management. Then we will have our conclusion. Beginning with the organization's page, it has 14 public members maintaining 91 public repositories, but only 32 of them were updated in the last 3 months. Among the more interesting repositories, 3 of them have been pinned: the App Scaffold, the scaffolding for decentralized apps built on Solana, mainly written in TypeScript programming language; Solana Program Library, a collection of Solana-maintained on-chain programs, mainly written in Rust programming language; and Solana, the web-scale blockchain for fast, secure, scalable, decentralized apps and marketplaces, as Solana Labs describes it, mainly written in Rust programming language. To analyze the development process, we look into the Solana repository. And like our Bitcoin analysis, the first thing we are going to analyze is community friendliness. But before that, a beautiful behavior is worth mentioning. Instead of rhetoric, but we love open source and we love open source developers, or we should pay more attention to open source community or things like that, they have sponsored the Rust developer and language team co-leader to show their support and thoughts with action. That is something we need to see more in this industry. Now back to our analysis and community friendliness. As we saw in the previous video, community friendliness has some metrics, and the first thing we assess is the explanation. Solana has a concise description that clears the goals of the project. But although the README is acceptable, we have a problem here. Imagine you want to begin a relationship with an attractive girl you saw in a library, and you begin your first conversation by saying something like this: It doesn't work, does it? It doesn't matter if everyone in the town is talking about your speed. You have better begin with an appropriate introduction, which of course can be a cool one with a little creativity. Maybe something like this one. Sounds a little better, doesn't it? Comment your own version. Anyhow, Solana's README file lacks an introduction and some other important sections. On the other hand, documentation is almost comprehensive with the appropriate introduction and a beautiful website. The project also has a wiki which is not comprehensive nor updated, but we can count it as another addition to the explanation. Investigating healthy and constructive community behavior, unfortunately, like Bitcoin, it doesn't have a code of conduct, and the repository's admins do not accept content reports. So instead of reviewing reports created by collaborators or contributors, repository admins have to find disruptive content with no help. Now it's time for contribution metrics. The repository has a very explanatory contribution guideline, which is rebranded to Solana Coding Guidelines to make it clear its focus is on coding and not other types of contributions. It clearly explains how to create a pull request and how it will be reviewed and merged. Unlike Bitcoin's contribution guideline, which has an emphasis on combining small and trivial commits into bigger ones, the Solana development team prefers smaller ones and clearly explains how to create prerequisite changes one by one to keep them smaller for easier review. Also, some additional guides can be found in documents for development. The pull request template is too concise, maybe because everything was explained in the coding guidelines. But issue template is not useful at all, and there is not any explanation about issues in the contribution guideline. Let's analyze issue management a little more. There are more than 500 open issues, approximately 17% of the total number. A high number for the total issues is good because it can imply a more active community and development team. But it is better to see the percentage of the open issues or the open issue ratio is low, because it can demonstrate fast response by developers. But things become more comprehensible when we compare Solana to other software. The most similar software to Solana here is Ethereum. To be fair, Ethereum is a lot older and has an army of maintainers behind its code, so maybe the younger Solana is not doing too bad. But investors are result-oriented, and the results are not in favor of Solana, even after ignoring issues closed by bots due to inactivity. So they may think Solana Foundation can hire more maintainers to improve the situation, especially when we see lots of open issues were created in 2019, and some of the easiest of them are being closed automatically after 1 year of inactivity. The development team recently uses an automation tool or a bot to mark issues that have not been updated for a year as stale, and automatically close them a week later. Aside from it seems sometimes the bot is not working correctly, there are lots of security issues from 2 years ago, so they may want to do something about that. Overall, the development activity regarding contribution can be improved a lot. Okay, let's analyze project management transparency. The project has explained the release process in detail and provided an appropriate release template. Although both the release document and template need improvement, they have high quality. But looking into milestones, the first one was closed 1 week after the project was launched on GitHub, so it seems they had a good vision of their roadmap from the beginning. Currently there are 4 open and 181 closed milestones, but one interesting fact is that there was some description for the old ones, but it seems they became tired of writing, so the community doesn't know the purpose of each milestone now. But if you go deeper, milestones have been mentioned briefly in the Solana release process documentation. Checking projects, they are using this tool at both organization and repository levels, so we can have some idea about the history of the project and the path they are going. It could become even better if more projects had a description. And the last part, there are 24 labels to make it easier to navigate around issues and pull requests to understand them better when analyzing or contributing. But what will be the benefit of owning a castle with 24 rooms when you throw all the furniture in the front yard? Here we have a terrible situation. They don't care about labels, which are a very important part of the project management transparency and community friendliness. It seems they paid more attention to labeling pull requests before finalizing them recently, but not the issues. And if we were counting some labels created by bots as no label, things could get more unpleasant. But last part of community analysis. Solana repository uses the Apache license version 2.0, which is an open source license. And near 1,000 users have used this license to create their fork of Solana. Also, approximately 5,000 users have shown their love for this project by giving it a star, and almost 200 users are watching it closely. Okay, it's time to have our conclusion for community metrics. Despite some interesting performance in explanations, coding guidelines, projects, and milestones, even if we ignore the lack of code of conduct or option to report disruptive content, we can't ignore they are not paying enough attention to issues and labels. So we can't call it a community-friendly project. There are a lot of work to do for the development team. Now it's time for the exciting programming section, and I hope to see a better situation in that section. Time to analyze the programming aspects. Solana is mainly written in Rust, followed by TypeScript programming language. So if anyone wants to contribute, familiarity with these languages helps to join the top contributors list among more than 200 contributors of the repository. While talking about contributors, we should also consider the risk of concentrated development and single point of failure. By looking into contributions, we can see the SPOFT, or the percentage of total commits created by the top contributor, is more than 20%, which is relatively high and not desirable. And SPOFG, or the percentage of total changes by the top contributor, is approximately 20%, which is high and not desirable, but better than what we saw for Bitcoin. Still, we like to see development is distributed more evenly among all the contributors to reduce the risk. But the two other metrics, ROCD50T, or the number of contributors that together create 50% or more of commits, is 6, which is not desirable. And ROCD50G, or the number of contributors that together create 50% or more of changes, is 4, which is very low and undesirable. Looking into commits, there are more than 16,000 commits in this repository on the main branch. Development is constant regarding commits number, with between 50 to 100 commits per week. And we can see the same consistency in changes except for some extreme activity periods. Commits description is acceptable but can be improved. Although the blind automatic analysis shows the average commit size is big, by investigating the codes deeper, we can see there are all sorts of big, medium, small, and some trivial changes, and all of them are real codes. There are also numerous bot commits, which is not a bad point in this case, but the development team should consider the risks they are facing here. Now we should analyze pull requests, which is very important when analyzing the development process. Open pull requests are usually new requests with no finalized decisions about them. What may be called rejected or closed pull requests, which we call unaccepted here, are those that are not accepted to be included in the source because of different reasons, such as being useless, irrelevant, buggy or problematic, not respecting the pull request template, or just being a duplicate of another already accepted one. And merged pull requests are those that have been accepted to be included in the source code. By calculating the metrics for pull requests, we can see the unaccepted pull request ratio is desirable, although pull requests will be closed automatically after 2 weeks of inactivity in the Solana repository. And the total pull request count shows a high level of activity, so that's a positive point here. But we should not forget that numerous pull requests here are created and closed by bot accounts. Analyzing the releases, the first thing to mention is that the release process has been well documented for Solana. Although unlike Bitcoin, there is no dedicated documentation for releases, which could be helpful, Solana now has well-structured release description based on the release template. And in addition to tags description, which is based on the commit description, there are the same explanations as releases for tags, simply because recently they are tagging the codes based on releases. Creating more than 300 tags during the repository's lifetime on GitHub means one tag almost every 4 to 5 days on average. But an ATB equal to 4.30 places Solana in the category of shallow tagging or super fast development speed. But which one is it? As you may remember from Bitcoin analysis, now we should analyze development speed and depth metrics. And to calculate these metrics, we analyze two of the stable releases which have 98 days interval. During this time, there were almost 1,500 commits with more than 150,000 additions and approximately 70,000 deletions. Very interesting when compared to what we saw in Bitcoin analysis. Of course, thousands of these changes are not real codes, and a significant number of code changes are not specifically made for Solana, at least 26% of the commits in this case. But like the previous analysis, to keep it simple, we include those changes in the calculation too. Now let's have a look at the calculated metrics for these 98 days of development. The velocity G during a period longer than 90 days shows the average number of changes per day has been more than 2,000 lines. That's awesome. The velocity T, or the average commits per day during this period, was 14. That's wonderful. The velocity 1K is the time needed to change 1,000 lines of codes based on recent activity during a period longer than 90 days. The main purpose of calculating this metric is to understand how fast they can resolve a zero-day bug. And fortunately, they're very fast. It takes only 10 hours to change 1,000 lines of code for Solana. Seems their development is as fast as their blockchain. But how deep is their development? Dev depth tells us 150 lines have been changed per commit on average. And of course, this number is for long-lasting changes, so it falls in the category of matured projects. That's for 100 days. But what if we analyze it in a long term where we see a spike in the development regarding changes? The consistency of their development is really impressive. Their development style has not changed too much when looking into dev depth, while development speed has increased approximately 20% recently. Okay, let us have a conclusion for the programming section. The velocity metrics are impressive and dev depth is constantly in the best zone. With this condition and when considering the ATP, we are observing a super fast development speed. Concentrated development metrics don't look good, but the repository's development is so fast that if we lose half of the speed, it will become similar to Bitcoin. Open, merged, and unaccepted pull request ratios are in the best zone, even with more than 4,800 pull requests per year, which is amazing. The programming analysis result was a lot better than the community section. What do you think about it? Write it in the comment section. Now it's time to look into the dangers and defenses. Security, tests, build automation, and risk management have different aspects, and the development team in Solana is taking that seriously by using various test methods on multiple platforms in build automation and when a pull request is created. But to keep our analysis simple to understand for everyone and keep the video short, we will analyze two aspects and leave the rest for another time. Those two aspects are risk management documentation and dependency update and reduction. Analyzing the documentation aspects, beginning with the README file, testing was mentioned, but there is not enough explanation and links for all aspects of risk management. Searching more in documentation, we can see risk management has been mentioned, but it can be improved and there can be more dedicated documentation for risk management and its different aspects. In the contribution guideline, the review process is explained in detail, but it can be improved a lot regarding testing and other risk management aspects. Pull request template needs improvement too. Risk management measures have not been mentioned in the release process document or the release template as they could be. But although it's not perfect yet, security policy is the shining star in this section. It is detailed and accessible. There is even a big bug bounty for Solana which has been described in detail in the security policy. But unfortunately there have been issues about what happens in reality. And at last, with that unpractical issue template, there is no wonder that we cannot find anything related to risk management in it. Let's have a conclusion. There is a lot of space for improvement regarding risk management documentation. Another aspect of risk management is dependencies, which are packages and projects that the repository depends on, and there are thousands of them for Solana. Any attempt to reduce the number of dependencies will improve the security of Solana. Dependencies are being automatically updated as soon as possible, and that's what we want to see. Now we have a good understanding of the development process of Solana. We know that despite some interesting performance in some areas, the development team is not paying enough attention to the community, and they can improve a lot in that direction. We also understood that programming is going on super fast and constant. It is concentrated to some extent, but the speed helps to mitigate that risk. And at last, although we are satisfied with the approach and frequency of the dependency update, they can improve risk management documentation a lot. Now that we have this insight about the development process of the project, I want to know what do you think about it. Tell me about your own research if you have done it, or just tell me about your feeling about this project before and after this analysis. Write it in the comment section below this video. Also, if you don't understand anything, do not hesitate to ask. I will try to answer all comments as much as I can. And before that, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and hit all, so you will become a Cybertribian and will be aware of the upcoming analysis as soon as it is uploaded. Also, you can subscribe to my Twitter and Telegram channel to be notified about major, time-sensitive, emerging news, updates, and announcements. And if you think the amount of effort and time that I have spent on this analysis deserves a like, simply hit the like button. It also helps to spread the insights so everyone can invest wiser and more informed, which in turn improves the adoption.